Helldivers 2. Oh, what a game. Been playing this so much recently, and it actually just hit its peak concurrent player count on Steam a couple days ago, 458,000, something like that. Who knows how many players they've got on PlayStation. The CEO of Arrowhead Games, who make the game, recently hinted that they'd sold about 3 million copies. So congratulations to them. That's pretty insane for a small studio like that. And today I wanted to talk about why I think this game has suddenly exploded and why it's become an instant overnight success and so popular. Of course, just my opinion, but based on what I'm seeing and my experiences with gaming, I thought it'd be an interesting thing to discuss. So to start off, we're going to talk about the cost. This game is $40. Many AAA games from the big publishers have been releasing in the last couple of years or so at $70, and at the moment cost of living is high. People are really having to pick and choose what they're spending their money on, and when they see a product like Helldivers 2, which is $40, they watch videos of it, they read reviews, and they go, you know what, that looks pretty good, and I've got some mates that might enjoy that too. They can actually afford to put that $40 in for the month and make it work. So it's a much lower barrier to entry with this game, which has inevitably helped it out in many ways. You're getting a lot of value with it, basically. The boss on Twitter also said that the average playtime at the moment is 17 hours and 57 minutes. And I think that's pretty good on average if people are playing that long. And I wanted to check, how does this compare to something like The Cinema, for example? I know it's not apples to apples, but I think it's a good example. I looked on the Odeon website. So in the UK, we have a chain of cinemas called the Odeon. Maybe I think they're probably in other countries as well. But I went to see how much would 2 tickets cost to see Dune Part 2, which I'm going to go and see. I added them to the basket. It comes to about £30 for the 2 tickets. Just standard tickets, nothing fancy. Get to pick your seat. So that's already $38. And then on top of that, let's say you get some popcorn, a couple of drinks, hot dog, nachos, whatever. And you're going to be above $40, maybe up to $50 for 2 people anyway. That'll give you about 2 or 3 hours of entertainment. Of course, it's subjective. $40 to you for a couple of hours of entertainment might be worth it. You never know. But to many others, it won't seem like that's good value or worth it at all. Just a little comparison there for you. You could pay more for a couple hours at the cinema, or you could get almost 18 hours on average of playtime out of a game that you're interacting with and enjoying and socializing in with your friends. That's a value proposition. Pretty good. Second, the gameplay. It's just a fun gameplay loop. On a core level, I think the movement's great. The diving, the sprinting, the animations. The gunplay is purposefully heavy, and it's not so bad in a PvE game. It's designed to feel a bit clunky, how it kind of lags sometimes when you've got those heavier weapons. And I think it gives you a better indication of how dangerous that weapon is. So it's got the movement, it's got the gunplay, the stratagems, the things that you call in. They're great because they make you feel powerful as a player. But they tend to have big cooldowns, and sometimes they can expire. So they're easily wasted, and if you throw them in the wrong position, that's on you. And the fact that you don't just have a radial menu which you can swipe up to and call something in puts a bit of pressure on you, because the more powerful ones tend to be a bit longer to call in. You got that whole DDR mini game, which you can easily mess up as well. And often you'll find yourself running from a swarm of bugs or automatons, having to call in an airstrike or a cluster bomb, whatever it might be. And it's adding challenge to the game. But if you do call it in and it's a successful hit, then my God, that is an incredible feeling. Especially with something like the Siege artillery when you get the mini nuke. That's just amazing. And circling back to the gunplay for a second here, you'll have noticed that this game doesn't have damage numbers. When you're fighting the big bugs or the hulks, for example, or the tanks on the automatons, they don't have health bars above their head. They don't have damage numbers when you hit them. And I think that makes the game look so much cleaner and more cinematic, but it also connects you a bit more to it, because when you're hitting things, you're seeing the damage. You're seeing pieces of armor fly off them. You're seeing armor coming off the bugs, and then it exposes what's underneath, and it's clearly a different color flesh, and that indicates that's a weak point. I'm going to shoot there now. The players aren't reliant on damage numbers popping up or user interface flashing around everywhere. When you're hitting targets, it feels good. You're seeing the explosions from explosive ammo, grenades, typical gunfire, and it gives it a kineticism that you don't get from many other games. On the harder difficulties too, it's quite a challenging game. Yes, once you get to endgame and you've unlocked the personal shield or the railgun, certain difficulties can be a cakewalk, but if you're playing on Helldive, especially against the automatons, depending on the mission type too, it can be quite difficult and team play is required, and you've got to strategize before you drop in what each member of the team is taking. What stratagems are you calling in? What guns are you using? Which order to do objectives, where to go, how many samples to get, when to sacrifice samples. So on the harder difficulties, I think the challenge and the replayability is there, and it can lead to some pretty insane moments when you're trying to extract. There's a level of satisfaction that you get here too from playing the game more often, learning the enemy types and figuring out their weaknesses. In particular when it comes to the bigger and tougher targets. Shooting parts of them off so you can expose weak points, flanking them, maybe it's using heavy weapons to take out a portion of their body so they can't do a ranged attack anymore, or blowing off a specific leg so you can expose what's underneath and do more damage. It adds a massive layer of depth and strategy to the game. And on top of this, it's a funny game. Yes, you've got the underlying obvious comedy bit, which is kind of Starship Troopers-esque, spreading democracy, fighting the bugs. It's all very on the nose, but well written and funny. The lines that the characters scream when they're in the games. But on top of that, the gameplay can be hilarious too. You've got those little pickled onion things that you can shoot and launch yourself or your friends, skyrocketing into the air. Come on. Oh my god!
Quick, Jack, run!
Hell pods falling on people. Team kills can happen all of the time. Maybe your Gatling gun shoots your mate's head off. Maybe you accidentally shoot them in the face as they're diving through the air towards you to avoid an airstrike that you called in. Maybe you kill them with that airstrike. Maybe you punt them down a hole because they didn't know that that could happen. I've seen a clip on Twitter where somebody throws a grenade at one of the bugs, and just before the grenade hits them, the bug jumps. It bounces the grenade back towards the player that threw it and kills them. And that's just a random thing that can happen. It's not an intentional part of the game design, but because everything is simulated and physical and possible, that kind of stuff is achievable. The amount of fantastic clips that this game can generate is vast, and it's all coming from the moment-to-moment gameplay, emergent narrative, people messing around, having fun, enjoying themselves. The audio, amazing. The music, some of the best I've heard in recent games. Incredible main theme when you're dropping out that hell pod at the start. It just stirs triumph and bravery, and you want to get down there and kick some ass. It does feel like some of the music is dynamic and reacts to what's happening in the game too, so if that's the thing, then props to the devs for including that. The graphics and the visual presentation of the game is phenomenal. The lighting looks gorgeous on some of these planets. Massive explosions and fireballs, goop coming out of your enemies. Visually, there's cinematic moments happening all of the time. Everything just looks so cool and stylized in this game. There's no aggressive microtransactions either, or crazy live service. There's normal war bonds and premium war bonds, I guess you could say. But you can find super credits in the game, so you could technically unlock everything by just playing the game. You don't have to spend any more money than the initial cost. And the boss again has said that they need to earn the right to monetize it further. And the CEO as well himself, I think, has had some pretty base takes on things so far, talking about how the game isn't pay to win. He also said that they'd never add a PvP mode because they don't want the game to be toxic, and they're sticking to their vision of PvE co-op. He's even said to people, if you've got no cash at the moment, get the game later while they increase the servers and support the capacity of players coming in. And this one where someone replied to a tweet and said, stop tweeting and fix the game. The boss replied, yes, good idea. I will sit behind the engineers and ask them, are we there yet? Or I could let the engineers work independently towards our common goal without me as the CEO pestering them at every moment. I wonder which one will work best. So it seems like the team at Arrowhead have got good leadership and they're working hard to try and meet the demand of the game at the moment. But at the same time, they've been honest about it and communicative. Last couple of days, I've been able to log in and play fine. So I'm thinking that maybe they've got a handle on things now. Unless there's like another gigantic spike in players, that could have a negative impact. But for now, it seems like they're smooth sailing. So overall, I just think it's a high value experience that's good fun. It appeals to a lot of people, especially in the shooter genre. Doesn't take itself too seriously. A social thing that you can play with your friends. It's funny, satisfying gameplay loop, and challenging on the harder difficulties. It's got a lot going for it. As for updates in the future, I'd love to see more factions, of course more planets. They've added a couple already as far as I'm aware that you can jump to. I'd love to fight more enemy types, and they did tease mechs as well at the end of one of their trailers, so I'm sure that's going to be incredibly fun to use when that releases. Aside from that, I'd like to see the game come to Xbox, so people who only have an Xbox can actually play it. I'm lucky enough that I'm playing on PC, so it doesn't affect me, but I know there's a ton of Xbox players who would love to play this. We'll have to wait and see, of course. But I do wonder if PlayStation and Sony are looking at this and how successful it's been on PC as an indication that maybe they should release more of their first-party games at the same time on PC, because there's obviously a massive audience here who want to play those games and they're not interested in buying consoles. Perhaps it was some kind of test or experiment with this particular title. But with that said, that's all for today, folks. Helldivers 2, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, and fair play to the developers. I think they've knocked it out of the park with this one, and I wish them good luck for future updates with the game. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this game evolves over the next few years and what gets added to it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. Why do you think this game has been so successful? Get a lightning in a bottle. Let me know below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.